Do you have any crazy chase stories?
Um, yeah, I do have, I have different stories coming to my head. I don't want to knock these off again. and I have different stories coming to my head, but the best chase story was when I was painting with Ty and we were painting along the freeway and he took me to all his chill spots. He was teaching me to bomb. So I met him after I met Amaze and Gray. He was kind of the third writer that I met. And I was painting a legal spot with a paintbrush, but it said Jocelyn Superstar. And it was a piece I never finished because 5-0, there was Vandal Squad back then, rolled up and was hassling me, and Some was painting that wall at the same time, and they put Some in handcuffs. It was very dramatic. We had to talk our way out of it. So I never finished that piece, but when I was there, Ty showed up while I was painting, and that was how I met Ty. So anyways, Ty was the third person. The story I have is Ty taking me to these chill spots and painting along the freeway. And one time there was all this rustling in the kind of trees and brush along the freeway. We're against the wall, painting the wall. And Ty starts screaming, Vandal Squad, Vandal Squad. And I was like, no, I don't think it's Vandal Squad. And because there was a lot of homeless people around there in little camps. And he's like, no, it's Vandal Squad. Get up the tree. And he made me climb up a tree and hide from Vandal Squad when it wasn't even Vandal Squad. It was homeless people. And they literally walked underneath us. And I'm hiding up in a tree. They never knew we were there. And then they left. And he's like, okay, get back down and we can finish our pieces. So that was the craziest. That was absolutely, and that's such a Ty story. He just took everything to the highest level. Literally up a tree.
I've heard some chase stories where it's like, dude, you might as well just let yourself get caught.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard of people jumping into water off the pier.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Jumping off falling off of crazy long drops and stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, the tree was pretty funny because I hadn't climbed a tree since I was a kid. Yeah. And I thought he was crazy. And you couldn't really argue with him, though. He was the mastermind. Yeah. And he would tell you how to do things. And he was definitely telling me how to do things. I didn't really argue with him. I knew he was the mastermind.
Yeah, no, it's important when you have a mentor like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to go back to Ty, because I know he's an important part of your story. So you say you met him through just by pulling up to that spot.
Yeah. He pulled up to me while I was painting, and he had his hands on his hips. He called me Jocelyn. He couldn't say Jocelyn. English was not his first language. He spoke Chinese. And Jocelyn, you dissed my crew. And I was like, no, I didn't diss your crew. I'm just giving you attention. I'm your fan. And he was so defensive. But then we just started talking and we really got along. And he was like, do you smoke weed? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, hold on a second. And he gets on his bike and he rides home and he brings back 7 perfectly rolled joints and he kind of throws them at me. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, you can have these. And he was like, I only smoke blunts. But then as I became friends with him, I realized that was not true. Ty would smoke any type of weed. That there were times we were scraping the bong and we were smoking some gnarly shit.
How old was he at that time?
He was 18. Okay. I met him only a few months before he passed away.
But you guys got really close, huh?
Yeah, we got very, very close. Yeah, he was my mentor. He was my teacher of bombing. When I met him at that wall, after he had his hands on his hips, ready to kick my ass, he was like, why don't you let me teach you bombing? You want to learn bombing and you want to learn how to bomb? And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
So I was really down for it. And I kind of stopped going to school for a while. I was just hanging out with Ty like every day. So
you're much older than him too. You're already...
Yeah, I was 8 years older.
Yeah.
So...
and you're like, damn, this kid's
cool. Or 7.5 years older. Yeah. He was super cool. I'd never met anyone like him in my life.
What was his personality like?
Very, very hyper manic. He never slept. He was a big stoner, had no interest in TV or pop culture. People always say Ty listened to rap. I never saw him listening to any music or heard him listen to any music during our whole friendship. The only thing he was focused on was graffiti. So maybe he was with these other dudes and other dudes had some rap on and he responded to it. But I saw him only responding to graffiti and that was it. That was what his whole life was about.
Where do you think that came from? Because that's a rare kind of dedication to anything. But in graffiti, like, people do other stuff.
Supposedly, he told me he had cousins in San Jose that did graffiti. And they were a big influence on him. They were older.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I know you're working on a book, too, and we'll talk about that later. But just since I've been doing my videos, I've been hearing all these stories that I never heard before.
Yeah.
Kind of piecing it together just for my own sake and just so I can, correctly tell people, too. Yeah. But, I'm hearing a lot of people tell stories about growing up with him in Santa Clara.
Yeah.
And that he was bombing out there in San Jose as well. I believe even Stockton. He might have lived for a while.
I think he was bombing anywhere he could get to.
Yeah.
And that he just had the attitude, more is better, and, did as much as he could wherever he could. And that was really the only thing he was thinking about besides his family. And he was a devout Buddhist. He did spend time thinking about Buddhism. And family, very, very involved in his family. But aside from that, it was all about graffiti.
Did you ever get to meet anyone in his family? Were you close with them?
I did not, but I have, since he passed away, I have talked with his sister on Instagram.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And they are supportive of a book coming out about
great.
About his life, yeah.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, it's hard to tell his story without talking about his passing.
Yeah, it is.
And I've researched this. Like I said, I've looked into it. But just, do you want to tell your version of events there?
I think maybe it's better if you tell it because it's hard for me. Yeah. I get a little tripped up.
Yeah,
I get a little tripped up.
I know it's a sensitive subject.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been documented in magazines and piece by piece documentary. Pretty detailed job.
I talked about it in Piece by Piece.
Yeah.
And so it's like if I talk about it again, I'm just kind of reliving what I did in Piece by Piece.
Yeah. I mean, just basically the idea that he was out bombing by himself and climbing up a pole to a building in the Tenderloin to access the roof.
Yeah.
Vietnam veteran who, with the reports I read, said that he was already pulling guns out on people.
Yeah, he had a big collection of guns, was a gun freak.
Yeah.
And also had a human target range on the backside of his door. Yeah, I read that in reports.
So it just kind of obviously comes off as a really unstable guy.
Exactly.
He came out, confronted Ty. There was a witness. I don't think she ended up coming forward in
I heard she was not a credible witness because she was a sex worker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but basically her version of events was hearing basically Ty try to deal with it peacefully. Throw his hands up, say don't shoot.
Right.
He was unarmed.
Exactly.
18 years old, teenager, small guy.
Exactly.
And the coroner report and everything shows that he was shot in the back of the head.
Yeah.
So and going down the stairs.
Yeah.
Running away. So there's really no threat to William Porter for shooting him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard for me to talk about because as you're talking about the stairs, I can see the stairs because I was there. after he was murdered, we all had a memorial at that spot until the cops ran us out. And I was right there crying at the stairs. So I can see the stairs in my head.
Yeah.
There was blood all over the stairs and the cement in the parking lot. It was fresh blood.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you and all his friends and all his family had to experience that. And
yeah.
But I do think well, didn't Porter come out and harass people during that memorial?
Yeah. I never had a encounter with him, but I did hear that story a lot. But I heard a lot of graffiti writers harassing him over the years too.
Oh, going back,
yeah.
Yeah, well, he's on Facebook.
Yeah,
I've seen him on Facebook,
yeah.
and the reason why I think it's important to tell the story too is just the fact that no charges were ever filed.
Yeah.
Really fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, in your opinion, why do you think that is?
Because Ty was Asian. He was a minor. His parents were Chinese, but they came from the Philippines. So they, English wasn't their first language. They weren't able to fight a proper legal battle, I think. They were also Buddhists, so maybe they thought, let it go. And Porter was a photojournalist, was kind of well esteemed in the art world a little bit, and had a lot of pictures in City Hall or something like that. I remember as a bike messenger, I saw some of his pictures in buildings that people would point him out to me. Oh, that's the guy that murdered Ty. And crazy how it was dropped.
Well, I think I read too that it wasn't there. I think he had to testify in front of a grand jury, maybe, and from there they just decided, all right, case dismissed, no charges,
right.
I think on top of the fact that Ty was allegedly about to commit some vandalism too. And I just gotta say this. I've gotten so many, this really pisses me off. I gotten so many messages, so many comments on my video about Ty, about people saying, well, he shouldn't have been doing that. And it's just like, dude, there's no possible excuse. There's no reason why you think putting paint on a wall, that
comment makes me sick,
is worth somebody's life. And it's an 18-year-old kid. He's just still developing. There's a million other ways that situation could have been handled without him losing his life. So I just think, I'm glad. I'm sorry that it's such a tragedy, and I don't want to obviously relive those events, but I do think it's important that people know the story and continue to tell it. And that video about Ty has been the biggest one I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's been viewed millions of times. So for whatever reason, that story is really resonating with people. And I'm glad, as you said before, he was in the pursuit of this fame for his graffiti. And I do think that if there is any silver lining to this horrible thing, is that so many people have kept his name alive.
Yeah.
And yourself being one of them. What do you think about all the tributes and stuff that went up for him?
I think it's great. Yeah. And, all of us that knew him, really, we know that he wanted to be famous in graffiti, and that was his number one thing that he was trying to accomplish for eternity. He would be famous in graffiti, and he didn't want to be forgotten. And so we all know that, and he made that very clear. I think all the tribute, the Ty warning stuff. I almost wore my shirt today, but I decided to wear a dress. whoever it is that puts up those Thai warning stickers, they're doing a really good job. There's show stickers. That's how you pronounce SEO, is show. And there's a lot of show stickers running around. T-shirts, skateboards now. Fate was making skateboards at the Thai ship. It's all good because it keeps it alive.
Recognize where you got the game. We got our own style, got our own slang. Northern California is a West Coast thing. This is the history of the Bay. Recognize where you got the game. We got our own style, got our own slang. Northern California is a West Coast thing. This is the history of the Bay.